Welcome, Namaskar, beloved community. I behold the God, the good in each and every one of you. And we are so thankful to have you with us today. And welcome to another episode of Divine Discussions with your host, Chief Apostle Veronica Israel. Here where we dive into heartfelt spiritual truths, challenging conventional understanding and wisdom, and exploring the depths of the human soul. Again, I'm your host, Chief Apostle Veronica Israel, and today we are tackling a topic that is both profound and deeply relevant to many today. And our topic today for this episode is faith in conflict, cognitive dissonance, and its impact on Black spirituality. So, as we begin our episode for today of this podcast, let's deal with what cognitive dissonance, what does it mean? What is it anyway? And how does it relate to us? So cognitive dissonance is a psychological phenomenon where individuals experience mental discomfort due to holding conflicting beliefs, values, or behaviors. This tension often leads to turmoil, inner conflict, as people struggle to reconcile these concepts and contradictions. But what happens when this conflict is rooted in one's spiritual beliefs and practices? What happens then? And so that's really what we want to tackle today. Cognitive dissonance is when you believe two contradicting things, but in your action, it's the polar opposite. You believe one thing, but your actions show a difference. That shows that you are struggling and dealing with cognitive dissonance. So today we will explore how cognitive dissonance affects the human psyche and soul, particularly within the context of the Black spirituality and religious experiences. To understand this better, let's delve into the basics of cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance can manifest in several different ways. It can manifest when our actions don't align with our belief system, when we encounter new information that challenges our existing worldview. I'm going to say that again. This is one of the ways that cognitive dissonance appears. When our actions don't align with our belief, when we encounter new information that challenges our existing worldview, or when we are forced to confront inconsistencies within our belief systems. And that's how it applies to us as we will talk today about the Black spirituality, the Black church experience. So now let's connect this to the experience of Black spirituality. Imagine being told that your ancestral practice are pagan and demonic, while simultaneously trying to embrace a religion that was historically used to justify your ancestors in chattel enslavement. This is where cognitive dissonance comes into play. And it becomes particularly intense and painful. Just think about that. I know people have seen over social media, people talking about this is demonic, that's demonic. If you listen to a lot of the social media influencers that's supposed to be spiritual or Christians, everything is labeled demonic. anything that people do not understand, are not educated on, or don't agree with, they tab and tackle it and label it as demonic, evil, antichrist, all of these buzzwords. So let's deal with this. Historically, religion has been both a solace and a tool of oppression for Black communities. We cannot deny that. We cannot deny that when it comes to the Black communities, religion has both been a solace, it has been a comfort, but it also has been a tool of oppression for our people. And trying to whitewash that and trying to ignore that is part of the problem that we are having in our society. During the era of chattel enslavement, Christianity was often used to justify the subjugation of Black people, while simultaneously it became the foundation for resistance and hope through the Black church experience. Now, this duality creates a fertile ground for cognitive dissonance. Imagine being taught to embrace a religion that was also used to justify your own oppression. The internal conflict that arises from such contradictory teachings can have profound psychological and spiritual harm and effects on us. And it has for centuries. So just think about this. The same people that came on the ships came to Africa and took us as prisoners of war, bartered and took us. We were sold to them, took us from Africa, brought us back for the intent to enslave us, chattel enslavement. And so the same people that came and enslaved us as a people, on that boat they had guns, and on the same boat they had Bibles. So just don't think because somebody toting a Bible that they won't use the Bible along with force to cause you harm, because historically that is exactly what has happened to us as a people of color. So we see this cognitive dissonance manifesting in various ways. The struggle between accepting religious doctrines and that demand submission, and the innate desire for freedom and equality, the clash between the inherited religious beliefs and contemporary spiritual awakenings, and the ongoing reconciliation of ancestral spirituality with modern religious practices. For instance, let's deal with the spiritual practices of the African diaspora. Often includes elements of African traditions, Christianity, and other influences. This blend can create inner conflict when religious teachings demonize the very practices that provide comfort and a sense of identity. Now, a lot of people love to claim and say many things about the anytime they hear ancestor, oh, they jump, oh, that's demonic, da 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 da. But I'd like to pose this one thing that I always like to point out, because you have to use the Bible to. When you're dealing with fundamentalists and traditionalists, you have to use the Bible for them. So for the little Bible for them, When you go in the Hebrew Bible, you find the story of King Saul going down to what is called to the witch of Endor. Isn't it funny that everywhere in the biblical account, when they refer to witches, there's always a woman? Even in that, can't you see how patriarchal is at play? Patriarch is at play even in that. There's always a woman that's a witch. So he goes down to the witch of Endor, and what does she do? Necromancy. Speaking to ancestors, speaking to those who have left this earthly plane. Now, I want you to remember this. We are not just human physical bodies, but what animates this body is our spirit, our soul. And spirit was never born, so too spirit can never die. When we leave this earthly existence, this earthly plane, our soul, our spirit returns back to the one that gave it, the creator, to the spirit, to source. We return back. So to say that someone is dead is a misleading statement. Someone is no longer in the earthly plane. But what really makes you still lives on. So that's a point to remember. But he goes down, King Saul goes down to the witch of Endor, and he asks her to call up the spirit of the prophet of God, the Hebrew prophet Samuel. And what does she do? She calls forth the spirit of Samuel. And Samuel speaks. Now Samuel's no longer in the earthly plane. He's deceased. His body's in the ground. But his spirit lives on in the other plane, in the afterlife. And so what does he do? He has a conversation with a deceased prophet of God. So I want you to give that some thought. For all those who want to say, talking to your ancestors, talking to all this, is evil. But I want you to consider that. He was a Hebrew king, a Jew. And he went to this woman to call forth the spirit of the prophet. And he had a conversation with the prophet. And the prophet told him what was going to happen to him and told him about his demise. And according to the biblical account, the exact thing that the prophet told him, the prophet that was an ancestor at this point, he had went on to the other side of the veil, and he told him, prophesied to him, what would happen to him. And the very next day, exactly what the prophet had told him was what happened. That is a key point of necromancy in the Bible. A lot of times, that's one of the things that my passion is trying to help people decode the Bible, to see it with fresh eyes. Because a lot of times we've read things, but we didn't understand it as we read it. We understood it through the doctrine that we were taught it meant. And we never did any thorough research to really find out for our own self. Do we really see that, what the interpretation they're giving, or do we get something else out of that? So that's the problem with groupthink in some groups and churches and become a cult. Everybody has to believe this particular thing the same way. There's no room for individuality. That's with religion, but in spirituality, it's from within. So there's a difference. So we have to remember, so people like to say that's evil, but what about the people that have experienced their mother or father or grandparents coming to them in a dream, speaking to them, telling them things. And it was true. These are things just to think about. Like I always say, I'm not here to convince anybody of anything. I'm not here to try to show anybody anything that they got to believe, but to open up our eyes and open up our minds to view things in a different light. That possibly there's more to this thing than we've let on, than we even possibly thought was true. Maybe it's more to this stuff than what we were told. And think about this. Can we really trust the person who brought religion to us and enslaved us? Now think about that. Why would a kind, loving, and just creator use those who had no good intentions to give us the truth? Think about it. There may be many good things that we got through them, but you got to filter that stuff and pick apart what was used for our demise and what could be used for our benefit. That's what we have to do. And a lot of times, people of color, black people, we don't want to hear that because we don't want to think that a lot of the stuff that we were taught were lies and used to deceive and to control our mind to only think one way. So let's deal with something else. The human psyche is deeply affected by this internal conflict. Cognitive dissonance can lead to anxiety, depression, and a fragmented sense of self. For Black individuals, this can be compounded by societal pressures and systematic injustices that we face every day. See, the mental strain of trying to harmonize conflicting beliefs can lead to spiritual crisis. Many people find themselves questioning their faith, feeling disconnected from their spiritual community, or struggling to find a personal path that feels authentic and true for them. But see, this is not just about a personal turmoil. The collective experience of cognitive dissonance within a community can influence social cohesion and cultural identity. When a significant number of people in a community experience the dissonance, it can lead to a broader social and cultural shifts in consciousness. For example, let's use the civil rights movement. It was particularly driven by a collective cognitive dissonance within a community. And the Christian teachings of love and equality clashed very much so with the lived reality of segregation and racism. So the dissonance pushed many to take actions to reconcile their beliefs with their actions. See, Black spirituality is a rich tapestry woven from various cultural, historical, and religious threads. From African spiritual traditions to the Black church, to contemporary spiritual movements, Black spirituality is diverse and dynamic. However, the remnants of colonial and oppressive religious teachings can still cause cognitive dissonance. So how do individuals reconcile the spirituality of their ancestors with the religious doctrines imposed by their oppressors? How do they navigate the tension between personal spiritual awakening and communal religious expectations. See, this dissonance can manifest in multiple ways. Let's give them. One, the struggle to honor ancestral traditions while practicing Christianity. The challenge of integrating modern spiritual practices like meditation or energy healing into traditional religious frameworks. And the conflict between personal and spiritual experiences and institutional religious teachings. For example, many Black individuals, people of color who explore African spirituality or non-Christian practices often face judgment and alienation from their Christian communities just because they want to explore and define their path. This can lead to a painful inner conflict between staying true to one's own spiritual path and maintaining community bonds. You know, one of the things that I find interesting is that one of the things that we don't recognize or maybe don't know is that many of the things that in the Black church that we practice comes from African spirituality. It doesn't come from the Roman Empire. It doesn't come from what the colonial captures, oppressors taught us. Like the beating of the drum. That is an African expression. Going into trances and falling out and speaking in ecstatic utterances is not a European cultural thing. It is an African spirituality practice. So what happened is that our ancestors that were in chattel enslavement here in the Western Hemisphere, Jamaica, Cuba, America, all of these places, these islands that we were captured and made a slave. What we did, we were given a Bible and we were given Christianity. And so what our people did, they said, well, if we got to do this, then we got to find a way how to make this work for us. And so they begin to wove in that which they were given their own practices that they came from Africa with. So that's something. Let me give you one example. I'll give you an example of a few examples. I'll give you an example of the drum. The beating of the drum comes from an African experience. It's a culture thing, nothing to do with religion. Then when we think about the wearing of white, that's a culture thing. It's an African culture thing. When people are initiated into certain spiritual practices, wearing of white head coverings and white clothing, that comes from African spirituality that our people incorporated in. Even the idea of baptism, it is not a Christian thought. That's one thing people don't understand. Baptism comes from an African thought process. Jesus, even in that day, John the Baptist and all those, if you do a study, you'll find out that John the Baptist and Jesus, they were a part of a Jewish sect called the Essenes. And after rigorous study and learning and practice, to be initiated in this particular sect, you went through what is the conversion process of being baptized with a natural body of water. See, that's another thing of African Black spirituality that our people brought. They would go out to the creek, they would go out to the river, and they would immerse in water, wearing all white from head to toe. See, these are things that we haven't digged into to find out. This is a culture thing that a lot of times we mistakenly labeled as a religion thing, a Christian thing, when it's an African culture thing that our people mixed in. Use, for example, the using of natural medicine is what our ancestors did. They went out, got certain different roots from different plants, and from where they came from, they knew how to use those plants and for medicine and different things. And they learned that, and they had that. So when they came here, that's how they kept their children and their families healed and well. But a lot of times we are not taught those things. We're taught that's evil. But our ancestors did it to stay alive. See, this is where cognitive dissonance appears. See, while cognitive dissonance can be challenging, it also presents an opportunity for growth and transformation. By confronting and addressing these internal conflicts, individuals can achieve greater self-awareness and spiritual liberation. One pathway to healing is through education and open dialogue. We have to be willing to educate ourselves. We can't just take everything in that people have taught us and told us over the pulpit as gospel truth, if you will. We have to be willing to do the work, to educate ourselves, to do the dirty work, to dig and find out. Is what's saying we've been told and spoon-fed accurate? Is it truth? Is it something that we can use for our benefit and to our liberation? Learning about historical and cultural context of religious teachings can help individuals understand the roots of their dissonance and find ways to integrate different aspects of their spirituality harmoniously. Another approach is through personal spiritual practices. Meditation, journaling, and mindfulness can help individuals connect with their inner truth and navigate the complexities of their beliefs with greater clarity and confidence. And one thing that is so important is community support. It's crucial. Engaging with like-minded individuals, joining spiritual groups, and seeking guidance from spiritual leaders who understand the nuance of Black spirituality can provide the necessary support, not only the necessary support and encouragement for this journey. Give you an example. For example, attending spiritual retreats, workshops, or even online forums can offer a safe space to explore and reconcile conflicting beliefs. This communal aspect can be incredibly healing as it reinforces that you are not on your journey alone. Cognitive dissonance, while challenging, is an integral part of the human experience. It pushes us to question, to grow, and to seek deeper truths. For Black individuals, our people, navigating the complex landscape of spirituality and religion, acknowledging and addressing cognitive dissonance can lead to a profound personal and collective transformation. And as we conclude this episode in our time together, I encourage you to reflect on your own spiritual journey. Identify the areas where you might be experiencing cognitive dissonance and explore ways to harmonize these conflicts. Remember, the journey to spiritual liberation is ongoing and deeply personal, but you're not alone. Never allow someone to dictate your spiritual journey. Don't allow any community or any group to dictate your spiritual journey. Why? Because it's yours individually. I want to thank each of you for joining me on this enlightening episode of Divine Discussion with Chief Apostle Veronica Israel. If you found this episode insightful, please share it with others. And don't forget to like, subscribe for more deep dives into spirituality and self-discovery. Until next time, stay curious, stay open, and continue to seek the divine within. Those of you who would like to have enjoyed and found value in this session together, and you would like to donate to our work, you would like to be a blessing, you would like to say, keep on going on. If you would like to give, the Cash App is pinned in the comments section. You can give whatever type of donation that you would like to help support us continue to do what we do, to get better equipment and different things, to continue to bring this high quality content, these impactful teachings and sessions, to help spread awareness, to help expand the consciousness of so many who are still wrapped up in colonial religion and dogma, that have not yet started their search and started their path, to help aid in people finding their own spiritual path. And so we thank you for all the support that you give, for your sharing, for liking, for commenting. We thank you all. And until next time, I love you all, and I wish that you would keep on seeking, keep on staying blessed, and keep on shining bright your light. And always remember, I love you all, and remember that the presence of God in me loves the presence of God in you. The presence of God in me blesses the presence of God in you. Until next time, peace be with you.